It's Thursday, August 11, 2022. Federal tax revenue is now at an all-time high. This is so repulsive and disgusting when you look at the amount of taxation that is taking place right here in the US and what you are getting for all this tax revenue that we are having to pay on a yearly basis. Federal tax revenue at an all-time high, and guess what's about to happen? We're going to have 87,000 additional IRS agents, and guess who is going to be victimized here? It's going to be you, the middle class, anybody with a job. I don't care what side you're on, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. This is not political, because if you have a job, if you make money, they're coming after you. Federal tax revenue at an all-time high, yet we have the biggest deficits in U.S. history, the biggest debt in U.S. history. They're going to continue to squeeze blood out of the turnip, and you're going to get less and less for all that tax revenue they take in because they cannot stop spending. Absolutely repulsive what is taking place and what is about to happen. I'm really speechless today with everything that is taking place. I don't get political. I'm a political atheist. We're not here to talk politics. You can make up your own mind on your own time. We sit here, we talk about reality, we talk about money, the economy. And again, whether you're Republican or Democrat, this economy and an IRS, which now is armed to the hilt, this is going to affect everybody on both sides, so be very aware of that. Article today on CNBC, with inflation running at a 40-year high, which actually it's at an all-time high, real inflation, because we know it's near 20%, 36% of U.S. adults tapped their savings to cover living expenses, survey finds. Generation Xers have taken the most money from savings for everyday expenses, an average of $644. I guarantee you it's much more than that. During the first half of the year, the U.S. personal savings rate fell to 5.1% in June from 8.7% in December. And the only reason it was that high in December is because of all the free money, all the stimulus, all the benefit checks, all the PPP loans, etc. Be very careful where you're spending your money, ladies and gentlemen, because we are going to have a lot of rainy days ahead. You're going to have to protect your money now more than ever because they now have armed agents looking at you, wanting more and more money. Hourly wages are up 5.2%, but the official inflation number is 8.5%, real inflation 20%. So we're going to see a lot more people than 36% of U.S. adults tapping into their savings. And I believe this number is a very, very conservative number. I believe this number to be much, much higher. But let's take it for what it is, 36%. If you believe that this number isn't going to go higher, you are drinking the Kool-Aid. Here's another one today from the Washington Examiner. IRS seeks armed accountants ready for deadly force. They're now putting ads out there looking for people to join the IRS willing to use deadly force. People should be absolutely outraged. Absolutely outraged. 70–80% of this country is living paycheck to paycheck, and now we're going to have to contend with this. I mean, do you think you're not paying enough taxes? Do you want to pay more taxes? Do you think you should be paying more taxes? Everything you purchase, everything you do is taxed, and your wages are taxed. How much money out of that dollar bill do you actually take home? Maybe 30, 35 cents after taxes. Gas is taxed, food is taxed, clothing is taxed, you name everything is taxed. Every purchase you do is taxed. And then on top of it, at the end of the year, you got to file those taxes and write out that big check. So what are you making off of a dollar? 30, 35 cents. It's absolutely appalling what is happening. And people are struggling right now. They're getting laid off. They're living paycheck to paycheck. They're dependent on credit cards. We have food insecurity here in America. Inflation eating up your wages. Inflation eating up your savings. And now we're going to have to contend with a more armed IRS that wants more money. Unbelievable. Initial jobs claims surged to highest since 2008. The new 2022 high, 262,000 U.S. workers filed first-time jobless claims last week. How are these people going to make it? And now they're going to have the IRS breathing down their back on top of it. It's unbelievable what is happening. It's really an assault on the U.S. worker, an assault on the middle class. Wall Street Journal, rising food prices could become a business risk, analysts say. This on the Wall Street Journal today. It says in the article, I'm just paraphrasing, we could see unrest at grocery stores. So as people are going to be shaken down to pay more taxes, threatened to pay more taxes, as 8.5% inflation is eating up their paychecks, their wages, and their savings, they're buying less and less food as food prices are skyrocketing. How long before? Well, we're here right now. I've looked at articles. I've seen news articles. I've seen news clips on the television where they're locking down meat in some stores. We talked last week where they're locking down Spam. And putting alarm sensors on the plastic little boxes and putting Spam in it because they're stealing so much Spam. Imagine how bad this could get, and I believe it's about to get much, much worse. We have the potential here to see some really, really shocking things. But when the Wall Street Journal is talking about unrest at grocery stores, this is where we're at today. This is not a dream or a nightmare or an illusion, ladies and gentlemen. This is reality. This is the Wall Street Journal talking about unrest at your grocery stores because people don't have the money. And when they start getting hungry, they're going to go rob. They're going to start stealing food out of grocery stores. July inflation breakdown. Where are higher prices hitting Americans the hardest? Is on Fox Business. Gas up 44%. Fuel oil up 75.6%. Utilities up 30.5%. Used cars up 6.6%. New cars up 11.7%. And quick question, where are all those new cars sitting that don't have chips? Are they just sitting out in Detroit somewhere? Where are all these cars sitting? And what are they going to do with all these cars they produce that they don't have chips? What are they going to do with thousands and thousands and thousands of these cars? Please comment down below. Coffee up 20.3%, cereal up 16.8%. The hedge today, the price of eggs is up 47% in the US, spiraling out of control. A lot of Americans are falling out of the middle class right now, and a lot of Americans are going to continue to fall out of the middle class because the average person is just not going to be able to keep up with this kind of inflation, especially the food inflation. And wait till you see beef prices next year. 37 million euthanized chickens and turkeys this year. We saw cattle dying off because of the drought. Thousands of cattle have died or been sold to processing plants. Crops have been dying off. We see the corn and wheat crops in Eastern Europe not making it overseas. They're not going to be shipping because of the war. Food prices, ladies and gentlemen, are only going to go up. And as I said earlier, wait till you see beef prices next year because they're not keeping the cattle. A lot of the cattle have died off, or they're sending them to processing plants because the ranchers cannot afford to feed them. So they're not going to keep them. They're sending them to processing plants right now. So we're going to have a very, very limited amount, a decline in beef next year. And I'll tell you, if you want good beef, you go to a good store and you want all natural beef, you're going to be paying anywhere from $20, $22 for a ribeye or a New York. My local store is charging $30 a pound for porterhouse, $20 for New York. Where is that price going to be next year? And I remember 2 years ago, the prices were half of that. Where are we going to be in 2023 as far as beef prices, poultry prices, pork prices. Most people are not going to be eating steak. I can tell you that. The Hedge today, JP Morgan, precious metal traders found guilty of spoofing, had power to manipulate the global price of gold. But yet, people will tell us, oh, there's no manipulation of the stock market. There's no manipulation of the metals market. You don't know what you're talking about. Well, today, Michael Nowak and Greg Smith were found guilty. Excuse me, yesterday, Wednesday, they were both found guilty by a federal grand jury, convicted in Chicago on charges they manipulated markets, get this, for years. They said 10, maybe 15 years, they were manipulating the precious metals market. JP Morgan has already paid over $1 billion in fines for spoofing the gold and silver market. Nowak, once the most powerful person in the gold market. And as I've said many times, take advantage of these games. Take advantage of the spoofing of these markets. Because if they want to keep manipulating the markets down and crushing the price of precious metals, why aren't you buying some of this? Take advantage of the game. I am. And I'm not giving anybody financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy gold or silver. I'm taking advantage of the game. I'm taking advantage of the manipulation because at some point, they're going to manipulate the precious metals market the other way, and it's going to be straight up. So make sure you have some gold, some silver. A great article I was reading today on wolfstreet.com. If you get a couple minutes, check it out. I'm going to paraphrase through this article. I think it's very, very important that you read this article to give you an understanding of what is beginning to happen in the housing market, because there are people out there that are going to make the tragic mistake of purchasing a home right now. Many have already purchased a home. Big mistake, because we're going to see big, big trouble happen in the housing market. This article is titled, Housing Bubble Getting Ready to Pop, the Big Boys Leave, Waiting for Reset. And it talks in this article, and I'll paraphrase, the supply, the huge supply of houses for sale. By June, 463,000 new single-family homes at all stages of construction for sale. That number was up 30% from last year, highest since May of 2008. Home builder cancellation rate spiked to nearly 18% of their total signed contracts in July. The Consensus Bureau reported sales of new single-family houses have plunged 17% year over year. It goes on to talk about the CEO of American Homes for Rent. Now, this is a company that will go in, buy up homes, and they rent them out. They'll buy subdivisions of homes and rent them out. Now, this CEO of American Homes for Rent has some very interesting stuff to say about the housing market. This company has slashed its purchases of single-family houses by 80% from earlier this year. Very interesting. Why would a company slash their purchases of single-family homes by 80%? What do they know that the average zombie does not know? Inventories of previously owned homes and new homes, and the time that they're sitting on the market is going up. It's getting greater, much greater. He says, we are in the early stages of price discovery. The early stages. What is this going to look like in 2023? He goes on to say, we are receiving lots of calls that we weren't receiving previously from owners of small portfolios of rental houses, and even from national home builders with excess inventory. The CEO said, we need to be patient and allow the market to reset. I couldn't say it better myself, and I've said this many times. Exercise caution now, ladies and gentlemen. This is the time to be very defensive. Keep your powder dry, get more dry powder, and be very, very patient. We are going to see a reset in the housing market. These are the pros, and they are not influenced by emotion like the average buyer of a home. So many people are so emotional, the FOMO, the fear of missing out. These big boys, these big companies, the hedge funds, the BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the Blackstones, these equity firms, they're not emotional. They're looking for deals. They're investors. They're going to get the most for their money. And right now, the big boys have walked away from this housing market, and I think you should too. Now, I'm not going to give financial advice. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but if I was in an escrow right now, I would cancel it immediately. If I was in the market looking for a home, if I could hold off for another 6, 12, or 18 months, that's what I'm doing right now. I mean, I would love to get out of the state of California tomorrow. I would love to move tomorrow. But we're in a bubble right now, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think that this is the time to buy a house. There's people out there telling you right now it's a buyer's market. They're fools. Foolish advice to be giving people this is a buyer's market. No, this is still a seller's market, but it is cooling down, and either the seller or the buyer is going to give in, but it won't be the buyer, because the buyer cannot afford 5.23 or 5.5% interest on a 30-year. The buyer doesn't have an 850 FICO at 20% down, so it's going to be the seller that loses. It's going to be the seller that has to crumble here and realize that there is a very limited amount of buyers now, and there's more and more competition, more and more inventory rising, days on market rising, interest rates rising, and they're going to continue to go up while the pool of potential qualified buyers continues to shrink. So it will be the buyers that lose here. And I think right now, a lot of buyers realize that they waited too long to put their house on the market, or they were asking too much, and now the market is cooling. And sooner or later, the sellers are going to realize that they're going to have to begin to come down on prices. And we're already beginning to see that. Then it becomes a buyer's market. But right now, we're kind of in the middle here. And we're just in this stagnant area. And in time, it's going to shift. And it's going to shift to the advantage of the buyer. So keep your powder dry. Be patient. If you can, look, there are situations where people cannot hold off for whatever reason. They have to buy a house. I get it. I understand that. But for the people who can hold off, maybe sold their home, they're renting somewhere, they're going to do quite well if they can just hold out. And not everybody can. I understand that. But if you can hold out, maybe you've moved back in with the in-laws, maybe you're renting a little dumpy apartment. If you can hold out for 6 to 12 months, I think you're going to do quite well, and really appreciate that you exercised patience, because this market's changing right now, but it's going to accelerate. Right now, things are kind of in a delayed reaction. Buyers don't want to admit it. Buyers and their real estate agents don't want to admit it, and they still want to believe. They're believing that everything's going to be okay, that everything's on a little break, that we're just going over a little speed bump here. That's not the case. This market is about to plunge. And if you're a seller, here's my advice to you. Do not chase this market down. Get ahead of it right now, because all you're going to do is chase the market down. You're going to be lowering your price week after week or month after month, trying to chase it down. You need to get ahead of it right now. Price your property to sell. Be the next house sold in your neighborhood. Don't be the last, because that guy's going to lose a lot. So I'm going to leave it there today. God bless you all. Have a phenomenal evening. A lot happening. Again, what we're watching take place is absolutely horrific. It's tragic. It's disgusting. It's repulsive. And this is why we all now have to really be cautious where we're putting our money, how we're spending our money, what we're doing with our money. We all now have to be our own central banks. It's just incredible that the shakedown that we're seeing with the average middle-class taxpayer, lower middle class, even poor. They're going to try to shake out as much money out of the U.S. population, out of the U.S. worker as they can now. It's disgusting, and it makes me sick. And that's not political. That's just reality. How many of you, whether you're liberal or conservative, Democrat, Republican, a political atheist like myself, no matter where you sit, who can accept that this is okay to weaponize a group, arm them, and have them set after you to pay even more money than you are right now? And what if you just made a mistake? I mean, they're coming after you. And it's scary. It is really, really scary. So let me know your thoughts. Comment down below. Please give this video a thumbs up, share it, and make sure you subscribe.